and I learned how to do all of that, all of those things. But that's the intention. So hopefully we'll be able to share these. Yeah, I just wanted to welcome everyone to the second of our professional development series. This session is going to be led by Elaine Marshall, and she's going to tell us how to find money, essentially. So I'm actually looking forward to this as well, because yeah. So yeah, go ahead and take over, Elaine.
Thanks, Josh. Welcome, everybody. Glad you could join us today. As Josh said, I'm Elaine Marshall. If there's anybody on that doesn't know me, I'm the Director of Sponsored Awards, and I'm going to just sort of talk through today some ways to find external funding opportunities, and then some key information that you might need in order to submit. So whether you have human and animal subjects and you might need to do training and get approval process for that, or if you are including salary in a budget and you might need to know fringe benefit rates, if you are applying to a funder who will pay for indirect costs, then we need to write those into the budget. So I'm going to touch on those and then finish up by talking about how to submit proposals through USERA. USERA stands for University of South Carolina Electronic Research Administration, and that is the web-based portal that we use to submit all of our proposals. We also use it if we need to make changes to an award. There's a post-award revision process within USERA. And it's also how our proposals route for electronic approvals before they get submitted to the funding source. And the folks in Columbia, well, let me back up. All proposals from all of the campuses of the University of South Carolina system all have to go through the main Sponsored Awards Management Office in Columbia. And so that the USERA system is how the folks in Columbia are able to access all of the information. We can upload it into USERA, and then they are able to pull it off and submit it to the funding source. So I'll finish up by talking about that a little bit more. So just wanted to give you a little bit of information about where we stand in comparison to the other senior campuses in the U of SC system. So there are 3 senior campuses. We are the largest, but you will notice that we are not bringing in the most dollars. So if you look at, I did an updated 5-year average that includes the year that just concluded in June, and we are averaging just over $1.7 million per year in grants over that 5-year period. But you'll see that Aiken is basically kicking our butts. They're at $3.5 million for that 5-year period, and Beaufort is coming up pretty close behind us. They're now up to averaging $1.3 million. They had a really good year this past year. We had a good year too, but Beaufort is significantly smaller than we are. So I feel like there's a lot of opportunity for us to grow in this area. And then I also wanted to particularly highlight research awards, because if you'll notice, that is a much larger percentage of the total awards for both Aiken and Beaufort than it is for Upstate. Most of our awards are service and training awards. And service and training grants are great, but we get to keep more of the indirect cost money for research grants. So we would love not to get rid of those training and service grants, but to add more research grants to our portfolio as well. So just wanted to kind of give you an idea of where we are. And so in order to sweeten the pot a little bit, a few years ago, we went back and revised how we distribute that indirect cost. So let me back up and explain. If you're really new to the grants business, you may not have any idea what indirect cost is. It's basically overhead costs. So what does it cost to have the lights and the air conditioning in the areas where we're doing our grant projects? So Columbia takes 20% of all that our grants generate, but I would argue that that's a pretty good deal, because not only do they do the grant submission for us, but they also do all of the financial billing and financial reporting for us. So I think we're getting a pretty good deal for 20% of our indirect cost recovery. The remaining 80% gets distributed to offices around campus based on this chart here. And you'll see that the two areas that I've circled, we went in 3 years ago now and updated this so that more money was going to the PI. So whoever is the principal investigator on the grant, the faculty member who is the driving force behind the project, they get 25% of the money at their discretion. So it's money that you can use to travel, or if you need additional supplies and materials that are not in your grant budget, you can use this money. You could even potentially use it to pay yourself summer salary if you needed to do that, to work more on a project, or to conclude a project once the grant funding has ended, something like that. That money is really at your discretion to spend however you feel best incentivizes your research. So I wanted to just point out that that money is available. We have had some folks talk to their department chairs and also get the 15% of the indirect cost that goes to the department. And so the PI has been able to use up to 40% of the indirect cost that's recovered from the grant. So we hope that's an incentive to get people more involved in pursuing research funding, particularly. So just
Elaine,
yes.
Darlene has a question.
Oh, great. I cannot see questions, so thank you for telling me that.
I want to interrupt you, but talking about the differences in the campuses, is it volume the difference, or quality, or both? Why they get more than us, or?
Yeah, that's a good question, Darlene, and I'm not sure that I can really answer it. Let me tell you why. I can see when I go into USERA, I can pull, and that information that was in that chart came from USERA. So I can see the awards for the other campuses, but I can't see their proposals. So I don't know how many proposals they're submitting.
That would be an interesting.
Yeah, it is.
Answer.
It's a good thought, and I certainly could ask the folks in the Sponsor Awards Management Office if they could give me a comparison for the last couple of years, just numbers.
Because it would distinguish the what I call the recruitment part. Is it volume or is it quality?
Right. Well, and we do know, for example, we know that USC Aiken has a lot more startup funding available for their new faculty than we do. That's one thing that makes a difference that we do know about.
Okay.
But yes, that's a very good question. I'll see if I can find some additional information about that.
Okay, I was just curious.
Okay, so the indirect cost, this is the other challenge with non-research grants. We have to remit the indirect cost recovery back to the state for large non-research grants. So anything that's over $200,000 per year, we have to give that money back to the state at the end of the year. So we don't get to keep it. We have to write it into the budget, but we don't get to keep that money. So this is where having more research dollars would be a real benefit to us, because part of that indirect cost recovery gets invested into our internal funding programs. So the more that we have, the more we'd be able to fund those internal programs that would potentially give people an opportunity to be more competitive for that external funding as well. All right, so places to find funding opportunities. So the one I want to start with is Pivot. Pivot is a funding database that the university subscribes to, and this is another benefit that we're getting from Columbia. Columbia pays for all of the USC campuses to have access to this system, and the nice things about it, it will allow you to search. It lists federal opportunities, state opportunities, international opportunities, and foundation funding opportunities. So it really is a pretty broad-based funding database. And the nice thing is it's a little tricky to get it set up, but they do have short YouTube videos that you can watch that kind of walk you through the process. And I've also linked there to their training page so that you can get started. So the main thing that you want to do is to register in the system, and I'll show you what that looks like.
Oh, we do have another question from Uma.
Okay.
Elaine, I just had a quick question. I know we are talking about the difference between service, training grants and research grants. Can you give an example of what a research grant looks like and what a service or training grant can be about?
Yes. So, a research grant tends to be sort of what people think about when mostly associated with the sciences, but not necessarily always. A lot of our the big grants that we have are service grants, so we're providing services. So the Student Support Services grant that we have within the Academic Success Center, Opportunity Network is what we call that program, that provides services to our students. So it's about $300,000 a year that we get, but there's no research as part of that process. We are purely providing additional support to those students. We have counselors, we have specific sections of University 101 for the students who are in that program. They also can do some, sometimes they do like graduate school tours, or sometimes they go to cultural events, but it's all about providing services to those students. So a research project would be, anything where you're answering a research question or you have a hypothesis that you are testing.
So in the world of business, right, I understand in sciences, research is fairly well defined. So
right.
In the world of business, suppose we look at the impact on the economy due to COVID, that could be woven as a research grant. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yes,
okay.
Definitely could. Yeah. Okay. In fact, I was working on one right before we started that we're submitting. It's actually due today. That is coming out of psychology, but it's a research grant about how we can better help our students who are underprepared but want to be STEM majors.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for asking. Okay, so this is the sign-in page for Pivot, and you'll see that I have circled. You want to use your university email address. That is important. And then at the bottom of the screen, you want to be sure to affiliate yourself with the University of South Carolina, because you should already be in here. The university, the folks in Columbia add all faculty into the system, so you should already have a profile in here, and basically what you need to do is claim your profile. So then once you do, you'll come to the home page in Pivot, which looks like this. And you'll see over on the left-hand side, you can search for funding opportunities. And one of the things that I want to talk about and why we promote Pivot is this saved searches right here. Once you get a search that you have tweaked and you've entered the right search terms, you can save that search, and Pivot will automatically send you an email every time new opportunities come available that fit your areas of interest. And you can save multiple searches. So it's a really good resource for people to be able to, like the old infomercial said, set it and forget it. It does take a little time to get it set up, but once you have it set, then it can be an automated process of sending you new opportunities that you may want to look at applying for. This is the advanced funding search page on Pivot. This is what it looks like. You'll see up here that this is, I'm signed in. There's always a help link on the pages that will take you back to those resources if you have questions about how to do it. But you basically can just search. You can enter keywords in these top boxes. And then all of these are ways that you can limit the search. So you can tell it, I only want to see deadlines that are more than 3 months out. I only want to see funding types. That's where you could tell it, I only want to see research grants, or I only want to see service grants, or I only want to see curriculum development grants. Those limitations can be very helpful so that you don't get overwhelmed with too many opportunities, because sometimes when you first set up a search, you may get hundreds and hundreds of items. Well, that's not that helpful. So getting it narrowed down enough that you're getting things that are really useful can take a little time. The other nice thing about the Pivot system is that it allows you to share opportunities with other folks on campus. So if you see something and you want to collaborate with somebody else, you can send this the opportunity to them directly from Pivot, which is kind of cool. So sometimes if people ask me to run a search for them, that's what I'll do. I'll go into Pivot, search, and then send them a notice from within Pivot of how to find those opportunities that I've identified. So I'll do a live demonstration on Pivot if we have time after I go through the slides and just show you what it looks like. The next resource that I want to point out is Grants.gov. Now, I said Pivot is a funding database of all kinds of funding opportunities, federal, state, private, international. Grants.gov is only federal grants. But that's where the big money tends to be, particularly in a lot of areas. So I do want to draw your attention to just this main keyword search up at the top, but then also all of these drop downs here that have a lot of useful information, and then also additional information down here. And again, they also have YouTube videos. They have a support line that you can contact if you have problems. You can also download the app and put it on your phone. I'm not sure why you would need to, but you can. Anyway, this is not just a way to find grant opportunities, but it is also how we submit many grant opportunities. I'm also working on one that's due next week that is going to the National Endowment for the Humanities, and it will actually be submitted through Grants.gov. So I'm working on that application in Grants.gov right now. And then the last one I wanted to mention is the Grants Resource Center. This is part of the American Association of State Colleges and Universities. And we are members of the Grants Resource Center. And I just want to call out a few of the resources that they have. You can search for grant opportunities just like you can in Pivot and in Grants.gov. But it also, in this funding resources tab, the other thing that this one has that's really useful is they have a library of funded proposals. So if you're looking to apply to a particular program, and you would like to see some sample proposals, which sometimes can be a little difficult to find. A lot of the federal agencies will have abstracts of their funded proposals, but to get a full proposal can be a bit of a challenge. But I can reach out to the folks at the Grants Resource Center and ask them for sample proposals, which we've done on several occasions, and that has been helpful for folks to have a template to look at. So that's the main area that Grants Resource Center is. That's the main thing that I use it for. But they send out a lot of emails, and I definitely share opportunities that they send me if I think that they are of interest to any of our faculty. But I don't want people to rely on me for that. I do want as many people as possible to sign up for Pivot so that you're getting your own grant opportunities, because I don't want to overwhelm people with too many emails about things that may or may not be of interest to them. Okay, so those are places to find funding. I did want to just show a couple of things that we have up on our website. So within Sponsored Awards and Research Support, we have the Sponsored Awards page. And I have some quick links here that are things that I tend to get questions about a lot. So if you need IRB approval or IACUC, that's the Institutional Animal Care and Use Committee. I have links to that right here. I also have a link to the fringe benefit rate. If you are writing a grant and you're going to have any salary in that budget, you also need to include the university's side of the fringe benefit costs. Those tend to change every 6 months. So that's why I just have that bookmarked on the main Sponsored Awards page. So it's a good idea to always check that whenever you're putting a budget together. And I'm happy to help with that. But if you are working on a proposal, I do recommend checking those fringe rates. Then I have the indirect cost rates. The rates are different depending on the kind of project that you're doing. So if it's a research grant, the rate is 1%. If it's an instruction grant, it's a different percentage. If it's a service grant, it's a third percentage. So just based on what you're doing, if it's on campus or off campus, the rates are different. So again, that's why I have that linked. Those change too, but it tends to be every 4 years or so rather than every 6 months, like the fringe benefit rates. And then I have a link to USERA, which I've already mentioned. That's how we manage all of our proposals. So that's the main stuff that I have linked right there on the Sponsored Awards page. And then I also have these 4 sections that have some additional resources. So I just want to show you a little bit of what that looks like. So in the Find Funding tab, I've got some resources. So obviously Pivot and Grants.gov we've talked about, National Science Foundation, National Institutes of Health. I also have Columbia's Research and Grant Development page. Excuse me. They have a list of limited submission opportunities. They also send out notices about those. Oh, one other thing that I should mention that I don't think I have a slide about in here. The Research and Grant Development Office has a listserv where they send out notices about grant funding, changes to grant policies, a whole bunch of really good information if you're going to be interested in pursuing grants. So I would really recommend going to the Research and Grant Development page and signing up for that listserv. It's called ResDev, Research Development. And so they will send you emails regularly with lots of good information about grants and grant-related items. Then under the pre-award page, again, some of the same stuff, Pivot, the research development page. Sponsor Awards Management has a budget template that is helpful It's a spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet that you can download. They also have an external proposal preparation guide. So I have links to all of those things. Grant pre-award includes everything that you do before you actually get the award. So some funding sources want to see a logic model as part of the proposal, so I've included that. IRB, this is an actual link to the IRB itself, the Health Sciences South Carolina, EIRB, which is what we use. And then this one is information about it. So links to the training, policies, all of that kind of stuff. Cayuse 424 is something that the university started using a few years ago. They're not pushing it in Columbia the way they were. It seems to work best with National Science Foundation and National Institutes of Health. So if you do find yourself applying to those, it might be worth looking. What it does is basically fill in a lot of the sort of boilerplate information into forms and stuff. So it may be useful. As I say, we're not pushing it as much as we were at the beginning. I think they ran into some issues with it. It wasn't quite the magical solution that we were promised, I think, when the university signed up for it. Then I want to just show you what the Sponsored Awards Management page looks like. So all of this information over here is really helpful. The reference information is where you would find the fringe rates and the indirect cost rates. Then we have the external proposal preparation guide, and then help with managing awards, and then forms and templates. Then over on this side, lots of useful links to other areas that are related to grants. So a lot of good information on the Sponsored Awards Management page. So there's that essential reference information that I talked about. Then this is the Research and Development page. And you'll notice here that they have links to the Aspire and RISE funding programs. I hope everybody knows about those. Aspire is funding for a whole variety of different projects. It ranges from $15,000 up to $100,000, depending on the kind of project you're pursuing. You're competing only with folks at the University of South Carolina, so that's nice. RISE is up to $6,000, and that one is half funded by Columbia and half funded by Upstate. And you're only competing with the faculty at the 3 senior campuses for RISE. And then this is the research compliance page. This would be where you would start if you need IRB information, animal care and use, biosafety, responsible conduct of research, conflict of interest, all of that kind of stuff. Training is all linked there. So another good resource to know about. And then this is the actual what requires IRB approval. This comes up quite a lot. People think stuff needs approval that doesn't. So it has to be both research and about human subjects in order for it to require IRB approval. So I just wanted to point out this page to folks as well so that they know they can check that. If you're not sure whether something needs IRB approval, it's probably worth sending it through. But if reading this information doesn't necessarily answer it for you, I would encourage you to reach out to Lisa or Latoya or to me, and we can help you figure out if it needs to be submitted through IRB for review. Basically the same information about the animal care and use. We don't do a lot with animals. It is fairly uncommon that I deal with that. We certainly do a lot more with human subjects than we do with animal subjects. On this campus anyway. Okay, and then getting into the proposal submission piece. So again, I'm back to the Sponsored Awards Management page, but this is where they have a link to USERRA. They talk about all of the pieces that need to be attached when you create a proposal in USERRA. And then one thing I want to stress, all proposals really need to be complete in USERRA 3 days before the grantor deadline. That gives Sponsored Awards Management time to review it. They do a compliance check. Are all the pieces there? They check the guidelines and then actually submit it to the funding source for us. So we want to, if we can get it to them more than 3 days ahead, that's great, but they need a minimum of 3 business days to be sure that it will be submitted in a timely manner to the funding source. And I'm sure you know that if you do not get it submitted in a timely manner, it will not be considered. All right, so creating proposals in USERRA. It looks a little intimidating. It's really not too bad once you've been through it a few times. I do want to point out that they have a handout that lists all of the PAP form is the Proposal Award Processing Form. When I first came to the university back in the dark ages, that was a carbonless paper form that we had to walk around and get signatures on. It was a form in triplicate. Now it's all done electronically. I don't miss the carbonless forms. So this will walk you through all the questions that you'll be asked as you set up the proposal. I'm happy to do that for folks. If you want to just send me your information, I can set it up in USERRA for you. Not a problem. But some people prefer to do it themselves, and that's great. But I'm happy to help with it. And certainly if you run into any problems, you can always give me a call or send me an email, and I will do my best to help you get everything set up the way you want it to. This is the login screen for USERRA. You are going to use your network username and password. So the same thing that you use for Blackboard, it's the single sign-on for Columbia that you need to use. And you notice here that they have a link to the budget prep guide and the SAM homepage, just in case you need those as well. Once you sign in, so as I say, it's going to be the single sign-on. Once you sign in, then you will have these red boxes across the top. And what I did here was click on this proposal and select Create New Proposal. So that's what you'll be doing if you are setting up a new proposal, and then it tells you the information. So you fill in your title. Is this a new proposal, or is it a supplement or a revision to something that was previously submitted? Remember I said that we submit some proposals through Grants.gov. So if you are doing that, you will have a Grants.gov workspace ID, and you'll enter that here. The starting and ending dates for the project, and then what's the deadline date? When does it have to be to the funding source? You can also search awards within USERRA. That's how I pulled the information that was in that chart at the beginning about the different award totals for Upstate versus Beaufort and Aiken. So I ran that through USERRA, but this will allow you to search awards, any awards within the university you can get some information about. As I said, proposals are private. I can see all Upstate proposals, but you will only be able to see your own proposals. So as you can see here, there's a bunch of ways to search, and it will give you a list that you can then download to Excel if you need information like that from USERRA. Okay, I think those were all the slides that I had. I don't know if we have any other questions. What I would propose to do is pull up USERA and Pivot and let you see what those look like, and I'm happy to answer other questions that you may have. So let me stop sharing for just a minute. Any questions at the moment while I'm pulling up web pages? All right. Hearing none, I'm going to share the pivot screen. So this is the advanced search page. When you come into Pivot, this was also another page I screenshotted for the presentation. You can start a search from here if you would like to, or you can browse. If you know there's a particular funding source that you want to know about, you can access that directly here, or you can go to the advanced search page, which is where I generally start. And then you can just type in keywords. So let's say we wanted to do find us tons, I'm sure. Yeah. So we get 1,100 results. Well, that's not very useful. So then you can go back and refine your search. So this is where you can go down and say, you know, only show me deadlines that are 180 days out or after a certain date. You can limited submissions I should talk about a little bit. The other thing that the Research and Development Office in Columbia does is manage the limited submission process. Some grantors view the whole University of South Carolina as one applicant. Some funders view each campus as a separate applicant. So that can be a little tricky, and it's a case-by-case basis. So the best thing I can say is if there's an opportunity that you plan to apply to and it says anything about being a limited submission, let me know as soon as possible, because we may need to go through an internal process to make sure that we're selecting the best candidates to go forward to the funding source. Some of you may have seen the email that went out recently about the National Endowment for the Humanities Summer Stipend Program. That's one like that. It's a limited submission in that each university can submit 2 applicants. But the nice thing is National Endowment for the Humanities views us as separate from Columbia. So Columbia can submit 2, Aiken can submit 2, we can submit 2. All the campuses can. So we had an internal deadline for us. So it was just for Upstate. It didn't have to go through Columbia. But if it's limited to only 2 could go in from the whole University of South Carolina, then we'd have to submit. Usually it's a white paper that they ask people to submit, and a committee of faculty selects the one that they think is the strongest to go forward to the funding source. So you can tell it, I do want to see limited submissions, or I don't want to see limited submissions. You can say, you know, I need you to fund opportunities in South Carolina. So you'll see it pops that in there. But it also, you can check or uncheck these to further limit the information that you get. Funding type, you can check more than one. You can uncheck. So it gives you a variety of things. So here's research grants for innovation, prizes and awards, all kinds of different ways that you can limit the funding type here.
Is there a way to restrict it to grants that are for just PUIs?
That is a good question. I don't think it is that fine of a yeah, I think it's just academic institution. I don't know that there's a way to make it more specific at this stage. You know, once you start finding some things, there might be a way to do keywords. That might be the best bet there. So undergraduate education, but that's specifically for education grants. Yeah, so that will take a little fiddling to get it to do that, Josh. And then
So
you can say,
is there, I'm sorry, I keep on interrupting you here. Is there, and you might have already shown this, and I'm sorry if I missed it, but is there a way to, so you had mentioned that there's the service and the research grants. Is there a way to indicate just service and training tech grants or just research?
yes, that would be in this funding type tab here. So generally, you know, the service and training type grants are going to fall into this type of category. Here's training. And again, you know, it's not going to work 100% of the time. There are going to be some challenges. You're going to get frustrated with the system. I wish it were perfect. It's not perfect. It does take some tweaking. But you know, once you first set it up, and then you can see the kinds of results you're getting, that will help you fine tune it further, I think.
Okay.
I've been talking too much today. Okay, so that's basically what that looks like. So let's see if I tell it, I only want to see deadlines in the next 30 days. And I only want to see program development grants. I'm not sure how that's going to work with cancer research. So the first section here is things to include. And then when you get down here to this darker gray section, this is a way to exclude certain things. And you have all of the same categories. So let's see. So we had what, 1,130, now we're down to 12. So we narrowed it down pretty significantly. So then you could start looking at, oh, this is the kind of thing that I want to see. And see, here's where this is where you can share it. The other thing that's cool that I want to mention is, notice this, potential collaborators. So inside your institution is going to be the whole University of South Carolina. But this is going to tell you everybody in the University of South Carolina who might be interested in this project. So if you're looking for somebody to collaborate with, so it gives you inside your institution and outside your institution. But then you can come down here and look at, so it has the abstract, but this one is the one that I think is really helpful, is this keyword section. So then you can play around. If you click on each of these, it will take you to all of the other opportunities that have these same keywords. So this is, it's like any kind of research. Once you get started, some results lead you to more results. And you can see there are 6 different deadlines here for this program. It's got information here. It's got a link to the actual specific program guidelines. So it's a pretty good, as I say, it's going to take a little trial and error to make it work, but it definitely, I hope, is useful in finding opportunities for you. Okay, so let me show you. Oh, this is the other page I think is kind of cool. This is their chart with all of the different, you can see visually how much money is available for each different thing. So you see a big chunk is for natural and physical sciences, $67 billion. Military sciences, $11 billion. So it's a quick way, and if you click on one of these, it will take you to all of those funding opportunities that fit that. So that's another way you can use it as well. And then tracked opportunities, these are things that I have told Pivot, I'm interested in these. So send me more opportunities like these. And then you can see I have a bunch of saved searches. So you can save multiple different searches for different things, and it will send you notices. I get an email weekly from them, but depending on how narrow or broad your search is, it may be less frequently than that. I wouldn't think it would be more frequently than that. Then the other thing is the profiles, and this is where you can see everybody from within the University of South Carolina. If you scroll down, here's everybody at Upstate. And then you can go within each of our schools to see more information. So hopefully there is a lot of good, useful information there. Does anybody have other questions about Pivot? Anything they specifically want me to show on it?
Can this be used to look for funding that is like directly for the undergrads? Not necessarily like for to fund like an institutional program for undergrads, but like if a student was looking for like a kind of like an REU type of thing, or or some sort of experience like that, or maybe a study abroad experience. Can this be used for that?
That's a good question. It probably could. Again, it would probably be in how you set it up. I think there was so applicant type. Is there one for undergraduates?
Yeah, there is.
But now that would be awards to individuals, not necessarily through the university, which may be what you want. I mean, I think maybe if you were looking for a grant that could be made to the university and given to students, you might need to start with academic institution as the applicant and somehow filter for either scholarship or money that can be given to students. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I'm actually interested in both.
Okay.
The program building, and then also, if a student has a particular sort of interest or something like that, if this could be, it sounds like this could be potentially a tool to help them find some sort of program they might be able to do for like a summer experience or study abroad experience or something like that.
Yes. Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah, and that's not a way that we've been promoting this, so it might be something to look further at, and see. We might need to push it out to folks as a way to do that. Okay, let me just show you Grants.gov quickly, and again, I'm happy to take questions. Or so just a few things that I wanted to show. They've got some interesting and helpful, I think, learning resources here. So Grants 101, just a lot of grants terminology that might be useful. If I've tried to stay away from jargon, but sometimes I forget and slip into it. So all of these are live. You know, you can, how do you get started? So you can learn about it. You can search. Probably what most people do is search for funding, and this is the main search page on Grants.gov. So again, you can do keywords if you know an opportunity number or the catalog of federal domestic assistance number. You can type those in directly. But the one that I'm working on right now is NEH connections. So if I type that in, here it is, the first thing. It is due on Tuesday. So I can click on it and it gives me information about the program, but you'll see that it also lets me apply. So this is how we actually, oh, it's going to make me log in, which I'm not. It doesn't, for some reason, it doesn't want to let me log in Chrome. I have to go to Firefox. I don't know why. But anyway, I can do everything else I need to do with Grants.gov from Chrome, but it will not let me log in for some strange reason. So again, you can just type in keywords here. It would basically do the same thing. Or if you go to that more detailed page, you can tell it, you know, I only want to see grants to individuals, or I only want to see public and state controlled institutions of higher education. That would be us. And then you can say, I only want education grants or disaster prevention grants. So there's a lot of ways that you can limit. You can say, I only want to see Department of Defense grants. So lots of different ways to limit this one as well.
Does Pivot also kind of mine this website or this
Yes.
Database?
It does.
So is there any advantage of going directly through the Grants.gov than using Pivot?
Probably not. I had it set up before I had Pivot, so I still have it set up, but you can do the same thing. You can track opportunities in here. You can save searches in here. So it does some of the same things, but it is only going to be federal grants. So, I mean, if you're only going to use one, I would definitely say use Pivot.
And I guess that maybe it looks like some of these categories that you can, you know, that you can search by or, you know, click on and off, those might be maybe a little bit more granular than the Pivot. Maybe have more options or something to narrow down searches.
Yeah, it's different. I don't know about better or worse, but
okay, yeah,
different ways to
yeah.
Limit your search. Yeah. Okay, and then the last thing I wanted to show was the Grants Resource Center webpage. So I wanted to show you this funded proposal library that I mentioned. So you can see here that it has a bunch of different federal agencies, and so sticking with my National Endowment for the Humanities, well, is it not going to work? Huh, maybe there's nothing there right now. let's try Department of Education. See if we get something there. There. Okay. So now we have a variety of different programs within the Department of Education. We scroll down and we say, oh yes, I want to see this Minority Science and Engineering Improvement Program. So you can click on the abstract and see a little bit more information about it. And if you say, oh yeah, that looks like a good opportunity, then I can contact the GRC staff and ask them to send us that proposal so that you can see the full proposal. A lot of times they do not include budget, so I shouldn't say full proposal, but generally the narrative and you know, all of the written piece is included. And then the grant search. The other thing that I do want to mention quickly is that I can set up faculty alerts for you in Grants Resource Center. And again, I need to set it up for you, but I can do that. And again, a lot of the same kind of things, but you can limit by academic subject areas, by activities. So this would be, you know, is it collaborative activities? Is it direct service provision? There's undergraduate support, Josh. So, you know, there's a variety of different ways. So I can go through all this and I would put in your information and it will start sending you emails. So if there are areas that you're interested in here, you know, let's set up we can do a one-on-one meeting, either in person or Zoom or Teams rather, and I can get you set up with one of these if that looks appealing as well. Again, you can limit it by different funding sources, lots and lots of different ones. So that's one other thing just to think about as well. I think that's all I have. I know we've come to the end of the time, but I'm happy to hang out a little bit longer if folks have questions. I'll stop sharing my screen.
So to get the examples of the proposals, you have to request those?
Yes.
Okay, so that has to go through you. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, they have the abstracts up on the website, but you have to contact them directly and ask them to send the full proposal to us, which they're usually really quick about, actually. They only exist because we pay our dues to be part of that Grants Resource Center, so they're pretty responsive. Anybody have specific areas that they're interested in, or questions about how to find funding for a particular topic? Or hopefully I've given you some ideas of ways to do that.
All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.